Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. We'll just wait
Morning.
for people to come through. How are you, Clem and Lungi?
Good, thank you. How are
Well,
you?
I'm really good. Thank you for sacrificing your Sunday morning. I know those are often very precious times, so I appreciate it very much. Let's just wait for our people to come through. Let me just check if they can all see us. Just one moment.
okay.
Let's just give them a few minutes, and I just want to make sure that I'm also on the right broadcast line. Yeah, okay. I think they've got us now. Morning, morning, morning. Welcome. I think we'll just get going so that we don't spend too much time. So people will join as we carry on. The beauty of these sessions is that, or actually the beauty of this platform is that we can even engage with the comments afterwards, and people can watch this time and again, multiple different times. So thank you, Clementine and Lungile, for joining me on this wonderful morning, Sunday morning, chilly in Joburg, but I'm pretty sure you're staying warm where you are. Are you well?
Yes,
It's only a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. So I mean, we had our amazing session as part of the Vastly Sage Talk Show, and a lot of people still had more questions, and it did also feel that we needed more time and a bit more insight into people's mental health and well-being, and I was really quite pleased. Then that's my daughter. I was so sorry about that. I was quite pleased when you agreed to do a follow-up session. But I have to put out a few provisos. This is not a therapy session. I think we must just be clear about that. This does not replace the work that you need to do when you have something to deal with. It's not a consultation either. So I don't want people to take this as this is you are consulting the psychologist and the psychiatrist, therefore you come up with a diagnosis. No, this is not that. It's also there is no there will be some recommendations, of course, and which is why we're having this session, which is why we accepted questions. But it's not about tomorrow you wake up and then you have all the answers, or tomorrow you wake up and you are healed from whatever it is that you are struggling with. You really must seek help where you need help. And I always talk about, and I'll probably say this in our closing remarks, but upfront, let me say, companies pay for wellness services. Companies pay for psychologists and psychiatrists. You must look for those benefits in your company. Medical aid pays for services, some medical aids depending on your plan. So look through those. But also there are free services, free organizations that offer services where you can't afford it. But it really is about investment in yourself. And the beauty of this platform, before we get on with the questions, is that, I've even tackled some of the questions that people asked. I've tackled them on the mentorship sessions that I've been doing on the same platform. So things around fear and how to do inner work, I mean, that is, I covered it extensively. I am a trained coach. I studied social sciences. I dabbled in psychology too. So it is my life's work that I do and put out there. So I promise you there's some expert opinion in it. So I'm gonna get on with our first question, and let me just put that up because I did get those prepared. So if you just give me one moment. The question is, what is the difference between a life coach and a psychologist? So Lungile, maybe let me start with you on this one. What is the difference between a life coach and a psychologist?
Sure. So with a psychologist, you would engage in therapy with a patient, and essentially you're a qualified healthcare practitioner. therapy is more of a long-term process. We tackle beliefs, behaviors, relationship issues, mental illness, whatever it is that you're struggling with. Where with a life coach is not necessarily a healthcare practitioner. The scope is a little bit similar, but it's less of a long-term process, and the target is really more on identifying areas where you are stuck. So it could be work, it could be with relationships, but giving you more advice and it's more solution focused
Okay.
than it is with therapy.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you're saying life coaching is more solutions focused and unlocking where someone is they could be stuck either in their career or in their lives. And therapy is
Yes.
more of a journey towards healing. Is this what you're saying?
It's absolutely, it's more of a journey. So what I often see is, let's say you're a self coach, and then you identify the point that, so the life coach ideally should know where and when their scope begins and ends. Because normally what happens, life coaches will then refer a psychologist to go and unpack that point of stuck further.
Yes.
Because it could be rooted in childhood, it could be rooted in many of the things that is out of scope for the life coach.
Yes. And you spoke about behaviors, and I think it's actually quite important. This is a question that I felt was really important to bring here. I also did a mentorship session on one of the sessions where I tackled what a coach is versus a mentor versus a sponsor. And I think that it really will be worth people just going through that again. But I think this was actually quite a nice angle to bring in as well of, okay, so what does a psychologist do differently to a life coach? And I think it is, and just maybe to summarize what you've said, it is really deeply rooted in unlocking what is sitting deep inside of you and how it shows itself up every single day and how you can then learn. And first of all, through talk therapy, which is what you do, and just unlock what it is that is sitting inside of you and how it shows up, and what are those tools that you can use in your daily life to rise above those. Did I do?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. Yes, you did.
Thank you. And I think it's also important, though, to distinguish that we are talking here about clinical psychology. There's
Yes.
many different types of psychology. There's industrial psychology, which focuses on something completely different. And that's the one I wanted to be. Actually, I think I wanted to be all things psychologist. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Lungile. And guys, I hope that you can hear us clearly. If not, just ping me on the comments and let me know, because I can see your comments. If there's anything, just let us know. All right. So let's move on to the next question. And that question is, how do I forgive and accept the situation if the people hurting me do not realize or acknowledge they are causing the pain? And this person is suffering from success guilt and unrealistic expectations. But Lungile, I would like you to maybe just prepare yourself to answer this one. Let me go to Clem first, so we'll come back to this question.
Yeah.
Clem, let's start with one that somebody said, what supplements can I take as someone who struggles with anxiety? What kind of foods must I avoid and what must I eat?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. And so I think I should quite the question, because the thing about psychiatry is that sometimes there's a fine line between what is just a normal anxiety compared to an anxiety disorder. All right. And so if I'm anxious now because I'm on live and I don't know who's watching and all that, and so that is a normal anxiety that keeps me going. But then a disorder is something that is more severe and can affect your ability to function. And so this might not apply to everyone, all right? So it's very important that somebody gets to distinguish between the two. Is just normal anxiety, or is it an anxiety that is causing me dysfunction, all right? So there are some foods that can cause agitation in general, things like caffeine, All right. So high caffeine, and that's what people are taking now. I don't want to mention brands, but we know energy drinks that we're taking with high caffeine, and it can cause agitation. So if you're going to take caffeine and go to an interview, you must expect a bit of restlessness because it will increase your heart rate.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what it does. So you have to identify the foods that you know when you take makes you agitated. Like I told you, I'm having rooibos tea this morning because it's calming. All right, it does have that calming effect.
Yeah.
It does help you to sleep and things like that. So there isn't, from my point of view, any specific food that can help somebody learn to be calm.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't recommend any supplement. I just know the stuff that can cause agitation, but there isn't any food supplements that are necessarily made for patients with anxiety.
Okay.
Right. So some like with me, rooibos tea works for me. It might not calm somebody else, depending on our severity of anxiety. So there isn't any one blanket answer for this.
Yeah. Okay. I keep losing you a bit, but we'll come back to you. So if I just to summarize what Clem has said, there's a difference between just normal anxiety, which is everyday worries about, you know, finances, worries about, everyday living, the pandemic, there's the kids and all of that, and an anxiety disorder where it becomes so all consuming that you fear, you have a deep fear of the future, a deep fear of everything, and it renders you dysfunctional. Yes, Clem?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. And it renders you dysfunctional. So normal anxiety type issues, and she's already said it. She takes rooibos tea to calm herself down. I sometimes take chamomile tea. I mean, I drink the other stuff, big people's drinks, but that's not that's not to calm you down at all.
It does have a calming effect, though.
And I think it's important. You mentioned here that caffeine is one of those ingredients that can increase your heart rate and cause agitation. So limiting caffeine or actually eliminating it completely, if you are a person that suffers from anxiety, is something that you should consider. But I also do think that the conversation around supplements is probably a nutritional conversation. So with a nutritionist,
Yeah.
rather than what a psychiatrist would help with. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to move on from that if you don't mind. Your line is also quite a bit shaky, so I'm hoping that it gets better as we carry on. So Lungile, shall we come back to that question then?
So, yes.
And I'll just put that up shortly. So is how do I forgive and accept the situation if the people hurting me do not realize or acknowledge they're causing me pain? And I put up there that this is about it's a success guilt thing and unrealistic expectations. And this person is feeling really done in by the fact that she's expected to look after so many people and it's never enough. And they start calling her names and painting, labeling her a certain way. And I think it is how does, I guess it's more, the question is, and I read the whole context of the question. I think what she's trying to get to is how does she come to terms with the fact that she actually can't be everything to everyone and be okay with it?
Yes. So with that question, I tried to unpack it and answer in a way that gives practical solutions. So the first thing, continue to establish and communicate her boundary. Because the thing about boundaries, is that we think it's difficult to set, but I think it's actually harder to keep them in place because people are pushing your boundaries. Um, yes, she has said that she has communicated with her family numerous times and they don't seem to hear her. But I would say continue communicating. It's quite frustrating for you, but rather than be analyzing and being frustrated, just continue to establish your and maintain them. Keep saying no.
Yeah.
I wanted, it's a pity this is not like an interactive discussion, but I wanted to find out from this person whether they have communicated their expectations of the family, and if they have understanding of the family's expectations, are they in line with one another? It doesn't sound like it, but I would be very clear as to where she stands and what she expects from the family.
Yeah.
Guilt implies wrongdoing. And from what I understood, she hasn't done anything wrong. So I would say put down your guilt. You're carrying something that doesn't belong to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess the guilt that your lines are breaking and some of them can't hear. If it gets really bad, you can't hear, guys, just let us know and then we can make another plan. But
I can move around. Is that okay if I try to move around?
you are fine,
While
Clem,
Lungi is
now. But I think Lungi's
my bed.
connection is not great.
Hmm.
Okay, Lungi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can
Okay.
hear both of you perfect.
You sound clear now. so, so maybe technology. Well, actually, it's more psychologists and technology. Don't quite.
Yeah. It seems so.
All right. So just maybe to recap what Lungile was saying, she said that what is very important are boundaries, and that boundaries are actually easier to put in place. It's harder to maintain them, because that's probably where the real crux of the matter is. And from what I was reading as well, this person is struggling with boundaries. They're struggling to say no, and they're feeling guilty because they say no, and then they are seen to be withholding something from the family that the family probably thinks they rightfully deserve. Yes.
Mhm.
And you said that she
And
put yes, Longin.
I was going to say, I don't want the term black tax, but let's put it into the room. And normally what I would recommend is if you want to help, it should be I'm helping because I want to. Because the moment you start helping because you have to, there's a risk of resentment
Yeah.
brewing. So
Yeah.
I would, with this particular individual, maybe help as much as you are comfortable with helping, nothing beyond your comfort level, because that's where then you move into this place of resentment, this place of guilt because you're successful. That is not a healthy place to be in.
Yeah. Um, it, so, sorry, I'm just reading a comment here. Lungile should move closer to the source of her connection device. I don't know where you are, my love.
As close as I can get.
We want to see your teeth. That's how close we were.
Unfortunately, I am. This is as close as I can get.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, and I mean, listen, just taking off other devices that are connected to the network really does.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to just loosen the load on the network. All right. So I think let's maybe wrap up this question particularly and settle it at boundaries need to be maintained. You need to and I've spoken at length about this topic myself, because I've also had to go. I think many of us have to go through. There are very few people who are so lucky that they don't have these kinds of issues. My husband is one of them. Ah, I am so envious of his life. It's like, often he's just, yeah, I know what you meant. You meant the router. Lungile is already close to the router. Yeah, so I think, I mean, it's a really difficult thing when you have to say no to people. But the more you say no, because if it is detrimental to your own existence and your own well-being and your own means and abilities, then it is not good for you. And ultimately, you should be doing what is good for you. And if if it is at your expense, and Lungile said it, then you grow resentful. And I think there's a lot of resentment and pain in this person's story. And I guess, the older you get, the less you care about, those kinds of labels, because you are looking after yourself. Because people are always going to constantly want to abuse and take advantage of you, especially when you are the giving type. So unfortunately, there's no easy answer for this. As I said, there's no overnight answer. You're good. You just have to keep practicing, and maintaining those boundaries. And Lungile said you must put down the guilt. And I really think that, especially in our communities, in the Black community, being successful comes at a cost, you know. And the cost isn't always the fact that it isn't always what you put in to make sure that you succeed. It's the fact that you might lose some people because you will not be pandering to every single one of their needs. And that makes you feel guilty. You feel guilty because you are the one that's made it and they didn't. But I always think about, and it's a very hard thing to do, but how I actually managed my situation, and managed from this big an issue to this big an issue. So, oh, sorry, yeah. So from that to that. So it's not like it ever goes away. But what I started to do is to ask myself, if I was gone, what would these people do? If I was not around, say I dropped dead tomorrow, what would they do? you know and I think that we I mean, you can get technical about it and be like, yeah, you put them in your will or you put them on your life cover. Let's just assume there's none of that. And we create a huge dependency by thinking that we are helping people. If you are taking money and giving someone money to build something that that can then sustain them, you are not only solving that problem for yourself, you're solving it for many others and the generations to come. And I really think that it is a personal thing at the end of the day, but I believe that you must understand what your own personal boundaries are. I had to stop giving people money because I was waking up every single day, braving the hard and harsh circumstances, getting out of bed and going to work. Because being successful is not easy. It doesn't come easy. It comes with a lot of hard work. But at the end of every month, I was giving, well, not just at the end of every month, randomly people would be asking me for unreasonable amounts of monies to buy what I believe is utter nonsense. And you start to appreciate that actually money that people don't work for is the best kind of money. And if it keeps coming, why do they need to work? And work doesn't have to be about you get a professional job and you're in an office. You can go sell potatoes at the corner. Some people are just too important to do that. And I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but okay, it's a Sunday. Let's go. So I think, I mean, it's quite fundamental to think about what legacy are you leaving behind by keep depriving yourself of a life that you've worked hard for. I mean, I even got to a point where I was taking out credit just so that I could be seen as the good daughter, the good sister, the good sibling, and it didn't pay me. I grew all that resentment that Lungile mentioned, but I also put myself in a very difficult financial position because I just wanted to be seen as a good person. Um, I don't think you are a bad person when you develop boundaries. In fact, I think you are a wonderful person when you develop boundaries. I think I needed to get that out of the way. All right.
Dedicated.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. So shall we move on to the next question? How does one help their mother who's in an abusive marriage and the abuser is their father? Who's brave enough to take this one?
So for this
I
one,
can attempt.
my sorry, Clem.
You can go, Lungi, and then I'll add my 2 cents. Yeah.
So with this one, and I hope you can hear me. For this one, I would say be supportive in a non-judgmental way, because sometimes, whether we like it or not, affect people's decisions and the positions they take. Unfortunately, you can't remove your mom out of the situation. She doesn't want to, but you can be supportive. But like I said, be non-judgmental.
Clem?
Yeah, I encounter this a lot. And my approach has been that, a marriage is between two people, and you must just know that it's not your marriage. You can raise your concerns, like Lungi said, without being judgmental,
Yeah.
and say to your mom, I'm worried about you. I'm worried that you are in a compromised situation, that you could get hurt. And I understand that this person is my father, because now children feel like they have to choose sides, all right? And so if I support my mom, I have to hate my father. But then my father is playing another role. So it's a very difficult situation for a child to be caught in such a situation.
Yeah.
And so it's just to know your role and what it is that you are able to do and what it is that you're not able to do.
Yeah.
But still raise your concern and allow them to make a decision for them in their marriage, because it's not only when it abuse. Sometimes there's cheating. You can see that the other spouse, the other parent is cheating on the other parent, and you can see the hurt is causing, and you feel like you just want to take your mom or your dad out of the situation yourself. And you find that the parent is accepting somewhat of the situation,
Yeah.
no matter how difficult it is for a child. So, yeah, I concur with Lungi. It's just to raise your concern and allow them the freedom to choose what it is they feel is good for their marriage.
Yeah. And I think it's and maybe just to also add, it's a very difficult thing for a child to have to deal with that. And one of the reasons I wrote A Brave Girl Named Aya, my second book, which really seeks to address situations where children experience the abuse in their homes. The sad long-term side effect of that is unfortunately that becomes their reality, and when they're grown, they think that that's how life should be. They think that women must be beaten up, must be pushed around,
Yeah.
must be talked down upon. So, and it is a very difficult thing for parents to address. So with A Brave Girl Named Aya, which is available on my website, and bravegirlaya.com, what I sought to do with that platform is have the caregivers, whoever the caregiver is, because it could be a mother, it could be an aunt, it could be a grandmother, it could be whoever who's going through the abuse, to use the book to read to children as an opportunity to start tackling a very uncomfortable topic in the home, because even the ones that are being abused, it is still their responsibility and their obligation, in fact, to make sure that their children don't start to believe that that is how things are and that is how things should be, and that is how things will always be. It's a fundamental thing about being mindful as a parent of your own situation, so that you don't transfer that onto your children. And I do believe that, as you said, you have, it's hard not to be judgmental in a situation like this. And it's incumbent upon ourselves to also be conscious that these are two people in their relationship who have their issues like everybody does. But I think it is okay to be vocal with your parents and say what the situation with them is doing to you as children.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we don't talk about it, and it's the biggest taboo in Black cultures particularly, where everyone knows every day. We know. I mean, I grew up in an environment like that. It wasn't just my aunt that I watched getting beaten up every day. I was the one getting beaten up every day. My cousins were the ones beaten up every day. But when you are watching a father figure beat up or abuse in any kind of form, a mother figure, it is very disturbing. It really is. And it's taken a lot of work. Guys, I have a lot of issues. A lot. I have seen so many psychologists and so many priests. I'm fine now, I've kind of like I figured my rhythm over the years. But But as I was growing up and I was in my 20s, those things actually come back and they flood you
Yeah.
because you're starting to live your life now, and you're starting to come out of their shadow. Those shadows are there, they go everywhere you go. So it's important to also seek help for yourself because it is not an easy thing to deal with. It is crippling, as Lebo is saying. So be supportive in a non-judgmental way, as Clem has said, as Lungi has said, but it is important to not sweep it under the rug. I think it should become dinner time conversation. It should, because you know better now, right? And you can't tell anyone to get out of any relationship if they don't want to get out.
Yeah.
So don't even bother trying, to be honest. And exactly what Lungi said, make your stance known, but it is between the two of them. And even if you recommend they see a therapist, if two people don't believe, even if it's one person who doesn't believe it, no, they won't do it. Unfortunately, that is the sadness of abuse. Okay? Anything you want to add before I move on to the next question? Yeah. So the answer is, unfortunately, you can't help your mother. Your mother can help herself. You just need to keep reminding her that she's worth it. She's worthy of love. She's worthy of respect, and I think that's where the non-judgmental thing comes in. And no matter how much you want to judge the situation, you have to resist it. And I think one of the other things is that, you must be able to separate your relationship with your father as your
Yes.
father from, which is pretty much what you both kind of said, and your relationship with your mother as your mother,
Yes.
and the relationship with the two of them.
Yes.
I always say in my life, I've got multiple buckets. In those buckets, it's me, and then another bucket, it's me and my kids. Another bucket, it's me and my husband, and another bucket, it's so. If you are able to start compartmentalizing the roles in your life. First of all, the roles that you play, because also you might be doing things in your life that people could be looking at you and be like, "Ooh, why do you do that? Or how did you speak to that person like that?" So it's so important to be conscious, not just of your own surrounding, but also of what you are doing in your own environment and how you are contributing to perpetuating a status quo. Um, yeah, I mean, all else fails, you could kick your father in the soft spot, but I don't think that will work well for you.
Not for
Not
your
at all.
mother.
I often
After
fantasized about that, by the way, when my aunt used to get beaten up, because somehow it felt
Yeah.
like I could handle the beating.
Yeah.
Strange because I was young and I thought that way, but I hated seeing her, getting through that. And there were times when, and I don't want to tell their story, but when this man has clearly done something so wrong and so offensive and so disrespectful, but he would turn it and beat her up. And that for me, it really was hard to deal with. But again, you seek the help you need so that you don't perpetuate that, because that's not a good
Yeah.
reality for our children. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, let's move to the next question. Um, and the question is, how do you find um, how do you find the right fit for your needs? And Clem, maybe let me start with you on this one. This one says she has had 3 psychologists in the last 15 months, and she's kind of given up. I think the one scenario, the background is that this person lost their mother in a car accident, and she experienced that she was there, and she's now been like trying to get herself, empowered to deal with that experience. So I think without zoning into the specific, just I mean, and we touched this a bit. We touched on this on the talk show a bit.
Yeah.
So how do you find the right fit for your needs?
Yeah. So I think everybody comes into a therapy with expectations. And so it's very important that you make sure that you and your therapist are on the same page.
Yes.
So, when I started off, when somebody came in, they would come in with a problem, and I, as a therapist or as a doctor, would diagnose my own problems. I'll pick things in their conversation, in their behavior, that I think, oh, this should be a problem. Like somebody would come in and say, I have depression, but I can see that they're abusing alcohol. All right. And it's so easy for me as a doctor to zone into what I think is the major problem without addressing the patient's needs.
Yes.
And so most of the time, I just make sure that I ask, what is your expectation when you came to see me, what it is that you are hoping to achieve, so
Yes.
that we are in the same page. So I think when people struggle finding a right fit, is because sometimes they feel like their needs are not being met, or their expectations are not being addressed.
Yeah.
And so advice is that when you feel like that, instead of jumping from one psychologist to another, is to raise your concern. I mean, you're a paying client, even if you're not a paying client.
Yeah. You're getting
But you are a client, you can say, you know what, I don't feel like I'm achieving anything. I feel like I'm being misled, or I feel like I'm not being heard. I'm not given an opportunity to express myself. Is there a way we can resolve this?
Yeah.
And if you feel like now those things can't be resolved, then you can go.
Yeah.
Another thing is that therapy is difficult, all right? And people go in and they think, oh no, 3 sessions will sort me
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
3 sessions is just me trying to get to know you.
Yes.
And so if on day 3 I go home and I haven't really figured out where to from here, it can be frustrating. And we understand where people are coming from, but also it is a process. And so you must be willing to go through the process,
Yes.
where somebody needs to know where you are stuck, before we can move forward.
Yes.
But also it is that the energies, I have also changed a few therapists because I felt like we didn't click.
Yeah.
Yeah, the energies were just not compatible for me, and I will raise it up with them to say, you know what, I feel like we're not clicking. I'm not feeling as comfortable. It's difficult for me to let my guard down.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I think I will look for somebody else. And so it is okay, but address it first with your therapist before you can just say, I'm jumping to another one.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know what is the right fit for you.
Yeah.
It's more about your needs being addressed, and how
Yeah.
do you address it? How do you raise your concern if you feel like your needs are not being addressed? Because if you do this with a therapist, you probably do it at work as well, probably
Yeah.
do it in a relationship as well.
Yeah.
You feel like, oh, he's not rubbing me the right way, and then you're out looking for another person who's going to rub you, and you find that sometimes the problem is with you instead of the other
You
person.
take
So
yourself
try and work
everywhere.
through your
Yeah.
difficulties. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Clem, I mean, Lungi.
So everything that Clem has said, spot on. What I want to really emphasize is introspection. So typically what happens is you come in and you say, you're my 4th therapist here. I'm likely to ask, what makes you think that I'm going to help you? What
Yeah.
is going to be different about this space that you didn't find in the other 3? Because whether you like it or not, and I know a lot of people don't like hearing this, therapy is hard. So when you keep changing therapy, at some point you need to recognize maybe what is the common factor. The
Yeah.
common factor would be right. So introspect and wonder, curious about why is it so hard for me to find a good fit,
Yeah.
and by all means that is the case in every situation. Sometimes maybe you do need to go through 4 therapists until you find the right
The right
fit,
one.
right?
Yeah.
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 But it's also important for you to keep asking yourself, why is this not the right fit? And like Clem has said, speak to your therapist. Say, listen, this is not working for me. X, Y, Z, whatever the case may be. If it can be resolved, it can be resolved. If not, you're more than welcome to find a new therapist.
Yeah. No, and
Don't be shy to tell your therapist when they upset you,
yeah.
when it's not working, when they. It should be that
Yeah.
deep of a relationship.
Absolutely. And I think that in a way, and you've literally said it all, both of you. But I like to say, it's like dating, you know. Maybe I don't know.
It's a long-term relationship.
It's like no, even before you get to the one, you've got a long process and many frogs that you still have to kiss before you get to the prince, right? So it's exactly that. But I think people become so impatient about their journey and in the process that they want to click with someone immediately, and that person must be everything to them. And actually, one other reason why people feel that therapist is not the right fit is because this therapist is saying things that they don't want to hear. And,
Yes.
and unfortunately, if you're going to go down the route of seeking help, you must be open to the process and the journey. And 100%, that first therapist may not be the one. You might even be trying the process anyway. You just want to see, okay, how does it work? Which means you must allow yourself and them room to figure out, and build the relationship. And I think though, there's a real responsibility on the person seeking the therapy to make sure that it works to their need. And how will you know? You will know if it's working to your needs. If you walk away from a session with a therapist and you're feeling like, "Ish," I mean, I also had many years ago, I had to go through that process. But then a couple of years ago, probably about 4 years ago, when I lost two of my friends within a 3 month a period of time, I really struggled with that. And I needed, these were two people in my life who were everything that even my own family wasn't. It was someone who had literally adopted me when I say adopted, he was my husband's best friend, adopted me as a sister, and he was my big brother. When I needed something, he was that person I went to for advice in business. If I was going to do a transaction in business, he was that person. And I had never had a male figure in my life who did that for me, not at all. So, he meant so much to me. And I had another friend of mine who was just one of my biggest cheerleaders. She was always the one that, that sister that you. So those two for me were such significant people in my life, and people who had shown me so much love and care and actually just being there, being supportive. Something I never knew. I never knew what support was from, because if you don't get it from your family, you don't grow up with it. You don't understand what it is. And they were that for me. And I lost both of them within a period of 3 months. It was hard to deal with. So I went to see a therapist, but all she did was try and make this thing sexual with a person that I lost who was my brother. And I took it so badly. I was so offended by that. And I had to change that therapist because I was like, actually, you think every girl that is crying over a lost guy has a romantic thing. There's something deeper that you are not. I'm just like, listen here, you are a bad therapist. I just lost my brother, I've lost my sister, all within a period of 3 months. All you can zone into is how you can make it so dirty. And I found that really offensive. So I think it's really important to keep trying, keep finding. And I think this person mentioned that they were starting to feel a bit too close to one therapist, or like they were more friends than a therapy relationship, which I think on the one end is not a bad thing, because you want to feel safe with your therapist. But the boundaries must also be clear, right? Have you found those scenarios in your work where you get too close to
Depending.
the patient?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So the
Let,
thing is,
let,
yes,
people
go
feel
ahead.
comfortable with you,
yeah.
and they want to confide in you. They want your personal number. They want to talk to you about things. And, once you answer that call when they're in the crisis, there's an expectation that you must answer the call all the time. And once you start that, you have to maintain it. And then when you can't answer, then you move from being the best therapist ever to being the worst friend ever. And so we try not to have that friendly relationship with we are friendly towards them, but we keep it professional.
Yes,
All
yes.
right. If you need to see me, you must email me, you must come through my reception, so my work number and all that, just to make sure that we don't get boundaries are blurred,
Blurred,
because it's so easy. Because people open up to us, people are very vulnerable with
yeah,
us. They put their defense down. We know everything about them, and so they start feeling comfortable with you, and they feel like you can go and have coffee.
yeah,
We can't.
yeah,
I would love to, but I can't, because then we don't keep a professional relationship. And with us, ethics are very, very important. I think one of the training was that we must have very strict boundaries with our
yeah,
patients.
yeah,
Because we know so much about people as well. It's for your advantage, because we can exploit you.
yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah,
If you to people and you meet somebody who has not doesn't have good intentions, they can easily exploit you
yeah,
and take advantage of your vulnerability. So it's to protect the patient rather than to look after our own interest.
yeah,
But yeah, it
I
does.
like that. And Lungi, yeah,
So so everything that Clem has said, but I want to add something that people don't think about until they find themselves in that situation. If you bump into me at a restaurant in Woolworths or whatever the case may be, I won't greet you. I will respect that. So
yes,
if you say hello, I'll wave back, or I'll say hello, but that's where it starts and ends. We're not going to have a big conversation. How are you doing? What are you doing? What are you because we are not friends.
yes,
And that becomes a very awkward situation for me, but also for my patients, because they're
yes,
like, what happens when I see you in public? I'll acknowledge you, but I won't greet you first, and greet.
uh-huh. So I are those expectations then set up front when you're talking to the patients? You say that, listen,
Yeah.
when we meet in a public place, I won't be the one reaching out. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
I do.
yeah, depending on the particular person, because with some people I've had to say, look, if we meet in public, this and this and this happens.
Yes.
And I mean, I had to learn the awkward way where I did have someone bump into me and they wanted us to unpack and have this big conversation, and they felt, so I kept it very brief,
Yes.
and they felt as
You
I heard them and I
told.
didn't acknowledge.
Yeah.
Yes, I was told. So we had to work through that and reestablish that we are not friends. I'm your
Yeah.
therapist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
you in your roles you run the risk of people being overly emotionally dependent on you, and
Mm,
I get how it's a it's and Desiree is saying also I think you could get burnt out as a therapist as well if you're over
yeah.
yourself. Oh, absolutely, and it's also the same thing that we were talking about on the talk show, is how do you debrief, and how do you make sure that you don't consume all of these things that you deal with, because it's a lot. Woo. Okay, let's move to this one. How do you deal with self-awareness that reveals your inner child issues that were packed away for a long time that are now resurfacing, especially when there is no support from the people around you? I'll just move that down a bit. So, and this actually, this question, and I know you ladies read it, it was quite loaded, but at the core of it, this was the question. And this person did say that they are aware, they've got information about themselves, but they just don't know where to start when also the people around them are not supportive. So who's going to take this first?
Lungi.
So
She had
so
a
with
nice
with
analogy.
Yes, Lungi, you go for it.
oh, okay. So with this one, I said seek therapy. And I think it's great that you have self-awareness, which means that your therapy will probably be a little bit shorter than if you came in with no self-awareness. We worked on building awareness, then we go into the, okay, so now that you know this about you, what?
Yeah,
But I think because you are in the situation, it's difficult. You can't see outside of yourself. So if you're in therapy with your self-awareness and insight, the therapist can then help you to unpack. You need an objective
yeah,
eye, help you to unpack what needs to be unpacked, and then what.
yes.
Mm.
And Clem?
So it's very common that people come in with childhood traumas and they felt they had dealt with it all this time. And then later on in their life, things start surfacing. And I always say that when we have trauma as children, it's like your bubble, your safety net or your safety bubble has been burst, and you sort of have to try and bring stability in your life again. And
Yeah,
so we build these walls around us to help protect us. And so it helps us at that time when we're children to cope with whatever struggle we were facing. But the same thing that helped you as a child can work against you as an adult.
correct.
And so we have to keep making adjustments.
Yes.
And so people come in and they're depressed, and when you uncover things, you can hear that it's coming from childhood traumas or suppressed emotions
Yes.
that are now piling up, and you can't just get rid of them. And I think in our group therapy with Lungi, this came out a lot. And people are like, how do I even start? And I think Lungi spoke about how you have dirty laundry and you just keep piling it up. You just keep buying clothes, and the next thing you run out of money and you have to go back and find something to wear from your dirty piles, and you just have to start washing one by one.
Ah,
And so it is difficult to deal with childhood issues, and for the fact that you are struggling with them, it means you haven't dealt with them.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, moving people say I've moved on from a divorce that happened 4 years ago, and I know I have moved on because I'm in another relationship.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't mean that you have
Yeah.
moved on. Have you really dealt with the issues then, with what was said, what was done? Have
Yeah.
you healed from that process? Because
Yeah.
that is moving on according to us. It's not progressing. It's how are your emotions? How is your self-worth, your self-esteem, your self-awareness, and how do you deal with things differently
Yeah.
without repeating the things that you had been doing from the past that had not been working for you?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, yeah, self-awareness is good, but you might need to go into therapy to allow you to heal so
Yeah.
that we can break those defenses down
Yes.
and make sure that you have healthy boundaries, because people have high stop nonsense. Okay. And I say the stop nonsense, it protects you, but it can also isolate you.
Yeah.
All
Absolutely.
right. And
Absolutely.
so you want to be protected, but yet be accessible. So
Yeah.
that if you are in trouble within your boundaries, somebody can see, oh, Clementine is in trouble, and be able to reach out to you. All
Yes.
right. But childhood traumas makes us build all this
Um.
high stop nonsense that usually work against us later on
Yeah.
in our lives. So yeah,
No, absolutely. And it is
go
a,
to therapy.
exactly. That's why these two are here, people. Email them and go seek help because ultimately it is hard work, and but the
Yeah,
investment in it is such a worthy investment, honestly.
Yeah.
And not just investment in money, I'm talking about investment in the process, in the time,
yes,
emotional
yeah,
investment in it. And I did a session, again, as I said earlier, on this same platform, a mentorship session around. It was the first one, in fact, around how to do that inner work, because I think that people think that that you don't have anywhere to start, and
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons I did that session was to focus on what is the process to do that. Then once you've identified that, actually, what, this is what I suffered
Yeah.
in my childhood, these are all the things I have gone through. Once you've identified those things, then you can start to see, oh, how do they actually show up in everything you do every single day? And
yeah,
therapy also helps with that process, where you start to unlock, how do these things impact you? And how can you unshackle yourself from it? So I also say, once again, I mean, I say these things to just plant the seed so that people can start doing the work. Just unlock.
yeah,
I call myself a fire lighter. I light the fire under your bum, but you must get up and and run off from the fire and do the work yourself. And work means be a professional who can actually help you and who can be dedicated and committed to your healing process. Because honestly, I like people. I'm happy to help God is using me, but I'm not really committed to your process because there's multiple other people that I have to be helping. But my job is to just ignite that fire in you so that you see that you need help. And then you go and seek the help that you need. And this part about the support from people around you, I think, you know, we expect so much from people who are never going to give us what we want. And it's about time that we stop expecting people around us to be what we need them to be. We need to be that to ourselves. So first and foremost, I really believe that you should be supporting yourself through your own journey. Don't expect people to do it for you. They don't understand it. It's not their journey. It's not their, probably it is their problem, because if you are in a certain way, it impacts them. But actually, your happiness and your healing is all about you. It is why it's so difficult to do, because a lot of people don't want to take responsibility for themselves. They don't want to take responsibility for their happiness, because it's easier to blame somebody else. It's easier to point fingers at somebody else than to point them at yourself. So, so I think and in fact, I think we'll cross the question like this again. So in the sake interest of time, let me move on again. Thank you, ladies. So this one says, I am a qualified chartered accountant, but my career is so far behind. She's got low self-esteem. It doesn't help that, she says, it doesn't help that I am an introvert. And honestly, the world doesn't accommodate introverts. I doubt myself a lot and I have shrunk myself to nothing. I do suffer from depression. I isolate myself a lot, gripped by fear and self-doubt. How can I overcome that? So I think, if you don't mind, I would like to tackle a few things here. And there's a reason why I put up quite a chunk of this question. Because it is amazing how much of what we believe acts out in our lives. So first and foremost, this person believes that the world does not accommodate introverts. So already you've discounted yourself from the world. You have purposefully decided that the world will not accommodate me, therefore I am not worthy. So the things that we tell ourselves, the things that we believe about ourselves, can manifest themselves. In fact, more often than not, they manifest themselves in ways that are really detrimental to us. So if there's anything I can offer to this person is, first of all, start to believe that the world needs you. So you are a chartered accountant. Already, that is an incredible achievement. And whose lens are you measuring yourself against when you say your career is so far behind? You are a chartered accountant. So first of all, you've got great qualifications. You can go anywhere you want to go with your career. So what is the benchmark? Whose benchmark are you using that says you are so far behind? And I think we need to really, really guard against competition, because competition makes you look at other people's lives and they look glorious and they look better than yours. I mean, I don't know about you, but you've already achieved something really incredible. And if that doesn't give you some kind of confidence in the fact that you can tackle anything in life, then you need to do some work. And all of these things, and there's an underlying issue. It's not; these are just symptoms, and I'm sure that's exactly what the both of you are going to say. These are just symptoms of a serious underlying issue that needs to be tackled. And you can only do that in therapy. And they do acknowledge that they suffer from depression. And I didn't exactly have an engagement with them, because we're just taking the questions. What I would ask is, are they in therapy? Have they been in therapy? Because if you suffer from depression, it must mean that somebody diagnosed you, because you can't be just self-diagnosing and then, assume that that's it. So I'm assuming that, this person has already gone through that process or hasn't, either way. Seek help if you need help. And I had to address some of these things because I think that we are our own worst enemies. So we decide that I am like this, therefore the world is not going to accept me. And the sad thing about it is that vicious circle that therefore means you don't accept yourself. So first and foremost, you should accept yourself. I love when people say the world doesn't accommodate introverts. I've come across so many extroverts who say the world doesn't accommodate extroverts. I've had people in my sessions crying asking me, Amanda, how do you own your confidence? How do you own being such an extrovert? Because I struggle. People are always talking me down. People are telling me I'm too loud, I'm too colorful, I'm too this, I'm too that. So whilst you thinking as an introvert the world is against you, there's extroverts who are thinking the world is against them, which means it is not a true reflection of the world. It is what you have decided is the world for you. And unfortunately, it's clearly not working for you, because low self-esteem, doubt, fears, those are all symptoms of the exact same thing you've already done to yourself. So the question is, why? you know so what is that underlying issue that you need to be dealing with? So ladies, is there, what else could she, and I did say these are not therapy sessions, so I'm not expecting you here to give us what you would typically be doing in a therapy session, but what are some of the things that this person needs to be doing? First of all, I really think they need to see a therapist. I really think there's
Absolutely.
a lot of underlying issues that they haven't dealt with that need to be dealt with. And they need to start celebrating themselves more, because I think that they're expecting the world to celebrate them, and the world is not celebrating them. Therefore, they are not worth much. And I think I want you to answer, but I'm carrying on and carrying on because I'm just like
You're passionate about saying this.
because I really feel so passionate about people that have achieved so much, and they keep talking themselves down, but you've put in so much to get to where you are. And often you find that people may be coming from families that expected too much of them. Maybe being a chartered
Yeah.
accountant, maybe this person comes from a family of medical doctors and, you name it, neuroscientists, or that maybe academic achievements were overly emphasized at the expense of the. So I think that there's definitely a lot that needs to be worked on here. But let you add.
Yeah, so I think that is depression talking, So you spoke about lenses. Depression just makes your lenses darker. And
Yeah.
so you don't see the good in you, the self-esteem, the self-isolation, gripped by fear, that is depression. And from this, I think the person might need even medication.
Mm.
So therapy will help you to now see yourself in a different light, but
Yes.
it sounds like the world is already darker, and maybe a bit of an antidepressant could help
Yeah.
her deal with this thing. So yeah, to me it sounds like she might need help. So it's how do you get help, or how do you overcome this?
Yeah.
Get professional help on this
Yeah.
one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Lungi?
Exactly that, because I also thought this is the depression talking, the self-isolation. That is one of the symptoms of depression,
Yeah.
the self-doubt, the feelings of unworthiness.
Mm.
So therapy, medication, definitely.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
you go. You have.
Yeah.
I mean, I've offered from one lens. The experts have offered from another lens. All of us are saying the same thing. You need help, um,
Yeah.
and please seek help before it's too late, because this is serious. Everything we're dealing
Yeah.
with here is serious, because people's mental health and mental wellness trickles into everything they do, and
Yeah.
I'm that person that's always like, people, you can look hot and have a six pack and have thighs that are split into three, and you name it. You can do all of those things, but if mentally you are not well, if you are not seeing yourself in a different light, none of that will even
Yeah.
make a difference. And my heart really goes out to people who don't see, who don't see themselves that way. Okay, so before we run out of time, let's see. Thank you for that. And this one, actually, we're not going to tackle much, but I want to say that this is 100% classic case of what you've just mentioned. This one says,
Yes.
out of nowhere, she sometimes, most cases rather than not, wakes up feeling so sad and wants to cry. Should I worry? Without a doubt, you should be worried. She's 41 years old, divorced mother. She lost her mother when she was 16. She went through a lot growing up, but she thinks she has dealt with her demons. I don't think you have. And I think it's a consensus. You haven't. Waking up sad and wanting to cry is a classic symptom of depression. And
Yeah.
and I think we've already made that very clear. Please seek help, because clearly you are carrying a lot and you haven't dealt with it. And you think you have, that's just at a surface level. But you actually need to be digging deep and dealing with the grief and the trauma that you've suffered. Because losing a mother and getting divorced, those are that's grief eh, layered in multiple ways. So please do seek help. Um, and then this one is we'll take this as the last one that says, how do you know when it's a mental health issue? Is mental health issue a disease? And you read this. This has got so many contexts to it. Things like how you help a family member, which I think we've already agreed to. But things like, in the black community, sometimes if you go around picking up papers, is you're not honoring the call of the ancestors. So when do you know it's a mental issue, and is mental issue a disease? Who started?
It is a mental issue. Life in general is a mental issue.
Yeah.
We're always struggling. And I think people just want to categorize things. And I think it's coming from the stigma that if you are seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist, then you are mad, then you
Yeah.
can't deal with your things. It's not true.
Yeah.
And we're seeing therapists not to deal with what patients are saying, but to deal with our own problems so that we are always objective
Yes.
where we are in therapy. So for me, I always say that psychiatry is life, and life happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so not all mental problems or mental issues are a disease.
Mm.
All right. We do have mental disorders, and mental disorders are diagnosed according to the severity and the number of symptoms you have.
Yeah.
And so when you come in and we're interviewing you, we're trying to see if you tick certain boxes, and if you do, and especially one of the most important boxes is that if it causes dysfunction, whether socially or occupationally or academically, if you're a student, then we start worrying that there could be a disorder. All right. But we all have mental issues,
Yeah.
and you just have to go and make sure that you deal with them in a proper way instead of
Yeah.
just piling it up or hoping that it will disappear.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do you know you have a mental issue? If you're wondering, you probably are having one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
actually, it seems so simple to say, but the moment you have a question, you have an
Yes.
issue to address.
Yeah.
Whatever that issue is, and
Yes.
as you said, the severity then differs as you go through the process, but it simply
Yeah.
means you have an issue. Yes, Lungi?
Yeah. Yes. If you have a question, if you have a doubt, then maybe seek help. I mean, I've had so many people come to me and ask, so what brought you here? And they say, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just feel like I need to know what it is, but I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling off center,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. Mm.
Okay. So I think, I mean, you've given us even more time than I thought you would. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that the network also resolved itself. And really, I mean, all the comments here are all about, how great this was. I mean, the questions that we can't get to on this session, but I really, I mean, I'm encouraging everyone who needs help, contact the ladies. I've tagged them on my Instagram page. Find them, and even if it's just that first 2 or 3 sessions, to say, listen, let's just talk. Let me just unpack what's cluttering my mind and what's blocking up my emotions, and you should always seek help. That's where you should run to begin with. But it is hard work, I mean, the ladies have said that you can't overemphasize that it is hard work. And
Yeah.
that's for me, I think that's what sets people apart. Those who are willing to do the hard work to get to the other side and see the proceeds of that hard work, or those who are just like, actually, I don't want to go there, and I don't want to know.
Mm.
Or those who say, it's everybody's problem but mine. Either way,
Mm.
whatever choice you make, you're right. It's your choice. So no one can force you. This is why, you can't force anyone to go to therapy if they don't see the need for it. You can't force anyone to seek help. Yours is to support them and not judge them. but be firm and stern with what the consequences are if they don't seek help. Because I think this is very important. You don't have to keep taking abuse from people whom you are on the receiving end and they don't seek the help. And it's all about those boundaries that the ladies have already mentioned. But when all else fails, you must just seek help. And there's nothing more that we can add to that. Ladies, your closing remarks?
This was wonderful. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
having us.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
my
And
Thank you
thank you for
so
all,
much.
to everyone who has sent through the questions. Thank you so much. I hope we have lit a put on a light
yes.
for you in some form.
Mm,
Can you?
yeah. Yeah, I'm just grateful for this platform because I feel like it reaches everybody, those that think they have mental illness and those that don't think they have, and the in-betweeners. I'm worried about the in-betweeners
Yeah.
most of the time. And it's just to normalize mental well-being, to encourage that people should look after their mental well-being. I always say sanity is a gift and is a very fragile gift,
Yeah.
and people
Yeah.
don't take care of their sanity. So please take care of your sanity because it's very fragile.
Everything.
And yeah, Amanda has made us famous, and so our numbers are, our offices are going haywire. People asking for help, and they get disappointed when they can't get through to us. So one of the things is that we are busy, we are booked, we
Booked and
don't
busy, baby.
unfortunately see a lot of people at the same time because we take time with patients, and our 30 more
Oh, just we're out of time. I am on call. Hi, Lungi. Okay, let's just do this. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, now I've lost my connection.